Welcome to Too Many Games, where the more you game, the more you win. I'm Chuck. This is my co-host,
Hello.
Travis.
We fucked it up again.
You fucked it up. Now I have to start this recording all over again. This is our fifth time. You know what? I'm going to mute you until I tell you you can talk.
Here we go. Oh, let's do it again. You ready? Hello. There's this main focus that we didn't really explain whenever we started doing this, and we never really talked about the format of the show, of the podcast, right? And so we normally, both myself and Chuck will pick a game to bring to the table every week, and then we'll talk about it kind of like book club review style, and you'll say, oh, I like this about it, I like this about it. Well, then we normally try to pick just a general topic to talk about and bullshit about, and just to throw out some more information about things that we're into. A lot of the times it's games, video game, movies, just information like that, right? So we never really made it a point as to that's how we ran the show. So if you did see a game that you're interested in the title, you can jump like halfway through and then we'll be talking about games. In the beginning, it's always just a little more bullshit and a little less games.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to jump to the game, I mean, it's just that extra 30 minutes ain't going to kill you. Just hang out with us.
Speaking of not killing you, did we also not get a Patreon set up?
Yes, we got a Patreon finally set up. We only have one tier goal right now for $3, but you get access to a more extended version of the podcast. So those of us who like to listen to us ramble,
mainly Chuck and myself, we just got done talking about, we're like, man, I try not to be, self-centered and vain, which isn't true at all about me, but like I could listen to myself talk on this fucking podcast all day.
Right? We do tend to like go on tangents and stuff. Like when we're talking about a game, we'll try to relate it to another game, and then that kind of like goes off into this random discussion on us playing that other game and other things it relates to. And all that is stuff I trimmed down to get the podcast to about an hour length. But I do keep it in for an extended version because I don't know, it's fun to talk about games. I know I myself listen to other podcasts and just kind of like enjoy hearing game talk, even if it pretty much goes nowhere. But, so if you like hanging out with us, those episodes are like 30 to 40 minutes longer than the normal episodes I upload. They're yours if you wish to support us on Patreon.
Yeah, we're dumb as hell too, so we could just talk to each other, make chirping noises like a bird, very easily distracted.
We do have a Twitter set up so that you can give us some feedback if you're willing to. You could just comment and call us assholes and get to the game talk faster. I mean, it's all up to you. The point is, we do have a Twitter that you can engage with us on.
Oh, yeah.
What is that Twitter handle?
That Twitter handle is going to be at toomanygames2. Because that's not confusing at all. So
right. So it's TOO many games and then the number 2.
Correct. That is what you should type in to find us. Also, you might recognize the logo from whatever platform you use. I want to say Spotify because we can see where you're all coming from.
We're on everything. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple iTunes. We're on...
Listen to us on Grizzlebee.
Pretty much. Also, we have a Gmail set up. If you feel like not using Twitter, you could also send us feedback or questions to...
Drawings, if you wanted to draw something, like a little stick figure, or maybe in your head you think Chuck is, little... goofy, lanky goblin. You could draw a little picture of him, shoot it on over. I'd love to take a little look at Goblin Chuck.
It's at toomanygamespodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
We're trying to build this up. We're still fresh, but we do have many avenues that you could come support us, give us feedback, or you could just sit there and enjoy. That's part of the thing. We're not asking much more than that. Just kind of enjoy listening to us talk for an hour.
Share. Tell people about it.
With all that said, and this time for sure it's recorded, general topic today.
What was that big news?
Blizzard announced their new WoW expansion this last Tuesday. It's called World of Warcraft Dragonflight. So they're finally opening the Dragon Isles to bring everyone in.
What's the Dragon Isles, Chuck?
I don't know. Some stupid island with dragons. The hell am I? The fucking lore master here? Goddamn.
What am I, a fucking game dev? And in reality, it's just because I'm feeding information to Blizzard. It's like, oh fuck, we really don't know what this expansion is about. We modeled everything, looks great. Fuck, what the fuck are the Dragon Isles?
It turns out they're our main subscriber.
It's just
We
like
just drew a picture of a giant dragon. We had no idea what we were going to do.
Well, Dungeons and Dragons is really popular. It only makes sense. They need more dungeons. They need more dragons. They added a bunch of both, didn't they?
Right?
Did they not add a lot more dungeons and significantly more dragons? So it's WoW D&D.
Gary Gygax should sue.
The ghost of Gary Gygax. This is a ghost-centric podcast for the most part, by the way. So
Oh yeah.
if you know any ghosts, send them our way.
Ghost of Gary Gygax teams up with the ghost of Bob Hoskins, and they become Ghost Patrol, the first top ghost duo.
We're on a ghost patrol. We're gonna party, party, party. Watch the shit out of it.
Right? Everybody watched 20 episodes because it's in my mind.
Then who is the police chief?
Oh, Ghost Barbara Streisand. I should have known.
Wait. Barbara Streisand's dead. Somebody should really check her apartment.
I don't know. I haven't heard of her.
I never heard of him. That don't sound like no golden mama said I've ever heard.
So Dragonflight.
That's
It looks
the one.
like they're opening back up the Dragon Isles, which apparently when the dragons originally left them, they set up the magic stone sentry guys that shrouded the island in mist. All of the dragons kind of forgot where the island was due to this magic to kind of keep the island hidden in case anything happened while they went out to fight Deathwing.
Didn't a lot of bad things happen?
Granted, this wasn't like Deathwing Cataclysm. This was like Deathwing Battle of the Ancients, like thousands of years before World of Warcraft kind of thing. So they haven't been back to the island in a long time. This is also a very typical dragon story. Like, it's been used in almost every book series that deals with dragons. Most recently that I've listened to was the Aragon series where that happened.
What the hell is Aragon?
You know, the
that
young
book
adult
that kid wrote.
series, yeah, where kid finds the last dragon age and becomes a dragon rider.
So this is World of Warcraft Aragon?
Pretty much. I mean, Blizzard is not known for its unique ideas anymore.
Simpsons did it.
Something's going on. For some reason, the Sentinels wake up and turn off the magic conduit to re-enable the islands, thus bringing all of the dragons back. And so now they're going to basically reform all the different dragon flights. The red dragons, the green dragons, bronze dragons, and the black dragons.
Okay, because they were helping Scooby-Doo with the mystery? Where were all the dragons at?
They had to leave the island to fight Deathwing.
Okay. But then that was a million years ago, and Deathwing came back and did a bunch of shit.
So the whole thing was the magic couldn't be turned off unless some catastrophic event woke the Sentinels on the island themselves, and they turned off the magic conduit. So the island could just remain hidden forever if all the Sentinels never woke up.
But they'd only wake up if something catastrophic happened, so...
So that's the mystery. That's what's happening. Is like, we now have to go to the island and find out what woke up the Sentinels.
Oh, but only if something catastrophic happened on the island, not just to the world. Because I'm like, wasn't there a bunch of bad shit that happened a lot? And they're just like chilling on the island. There's like, yeah, fuck you.
Sword the size of a planet sticking out of the earth, you know?
Yeah, not my baby. Hey,
like,
not my problem, man. My island's fine.
That's all the way down there in Silithus. That's not our problem.
Yeah, exactly that. That's what I'm talking about. It's like those selfish dickheads. But no, so something bad happened on the Dragon Islands, and then so the stone dickheads woke up and then took off the condom on the island, and now the dragons can come home.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm the best at WoW lore.
So,
that's what I'm known for.
after the death of Deathwing in Cataclysm, all of the dragon aspects basically had to sacrifice their mortality in order to kill Deathwing.
Wait, their mortality?
Immortality. Their immortality to kill Deathwing.
Like, that's just called getting killed, dude.
I mean, now they're mortals and they're aging and all that shit. So going back to the island, they are trying to basically repopulate the dragon species and
so this is going to be a real sexy expansion.
Re-engage their magic to become immortal or whatever. At the same time, we get a new hero class. It always skips an expansion, you know?
It's archaeologists, right?
And they've had archaeology for like since Cataclysm.
No, archaeologists. Wait, Gravedigger? Is that the new class? Groundskeeper. It's a groundskeeper.
Gravedigger would have been an awesome hero class in Shadowlands. Be very, very apt to have just this guy who runs around with a shovel.
The goddamn kids. Goddamn elves running around, digging up my graves. Fucking goblins and those little furries. Whatever the little furry things are.
Vulpure or whatever. Now you could be a dragonkin. Basically a humanoid dragon person. And it looks like you're going to be able to switch between a human. So it looks like you're going to have like a human version and the dragon version. You could customize both, similar to how the Alliance class does with their Worgen races.
Right, but so from what I understand, it's panda mechanics, so you could pick whatever.
You start as neutral and then you get to choose your allegiance, basically.
Which I know makes sense because, you know, they're not going to make a hero class and then limit it to one faction because it's fucked up. But what a cop-out. I hate that.
Well, okay, so here's my kind of confusion is they recently were stating that they were going to eliminate faction rating. Like, you can mix Alliance and Horde in 9.2.5 or 9.3.5.
I believe it's 9.2/.
It's still yet to be introduced, but they were talking about it like, you know, we're going to eliminate this faction barrier and stuff. And then they announced this expansion. It's like the Drakir can still choose one of the sides. That doesn't really make sense.
Why would that matter? Yeah. And I mean, it would matter because then, like, where you bank and where you start, and if you like Horde more than you like Alliance, and I mean, like, I get it as far as like that's the core part of the game is like, you know, leveling up somewhere. But
think about it, like they could have just made Drakthir the ultimate neutral class, where you could actually go to both sides. You know?
Yeah,
that would have been so much cooler. Being able to send stuff to your Horde or your Alliance characters, you know? Talk to Thrall and then talk to Anduin. Shit like that. That would have been so much cooler.
Yeah, no, hey, actually, you're totally right.
Instead, they're like keeping themselves locked in this rigid structure that they created 20 years ago. All right, whatever. You know? It's for PvP purposes. Like, sure. In the case of PvP, the Drakthir could have just been a fill-all, you know? They just get put on whatever side has less players at that time. Like,
well, I mean, there's a million different ways to chop it out, like to make it work.
Yeah.
I think as long as like there's some, I'm interested, but I'm really kind of not, just because I'm so far behind with WoW that like I don't want to level up. I want to like deal with it, and I don't want to have to like feel obligated. Like, oh man, I didn't do my dailies today. Better not play the game anymore.
Right.
Like, I don't like that daily obligation. There's a lot of like what WoW has become, but that's what WoW was before. It just wasn't measured like that. Like, if you really want to be successful, you'd show up every day and just farm shit and just do stuff and be active. And
it's now more visually representative of this is your task list every day. Whereas before, you're like, you log in and you have to kind of create your own task list, basically.
Yeah, and I love that shit. It was like, all right, man, I'm going to spend all day fucking farming this one spot just cuz. And then maybe I made a bunch of money doing it because I was looking for, you know, a card or something. I don't know.
I feel like the newer system works out more for me, just because it's like how the old way did is like I log in, you know, I farm something for 5 hours and I log off. And then it comes to find out, oh, it's farming the wrong thing. Like this next week, I actually need to farm this other thing.
Old ways is better.
And so this way, it's kind of like, the game specifically tells you farm this thing, and it's like, okay,
can do, buddy. Thanks for the serotonin game. Be back tomorrow.
That said, they also kind of like use that to put in time gates. So it's like you can no longer farm for 5 hours. You're now farming for 2 hours, and then you have to wait till tomorrow to farm 2 more hours. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, there's plus and minuses both sides. Current Shadowlands is a lot better than how it started. How it started was horribly grindy. It was so bad. The Covenant system,
How bad was it?
you had to grind everything. There's 4 zones. Each one had its own like covenant attached to it. So you could choose, hey, I want to be part of the Venthyr covenant. Okay, well, you have to level up that covenant. So you're running around to all the 4 different zones. There's like 5 role quests in each of them. Then you also have to like farm out all the rares, farm out the special objectives and stuff to get the like artifact power, the anima, whatever they want to call it, to cram all those points into your covenant. And then that levels up your covenant, but it also like is used as currency for covenant related stuff. So you can upgrade your covenant, but you have to get like 5,000 anima. But every day you can only input like 1,000, you know? So it takes you 5 days to get this one upgrade. Stupid shit like that. Then on top of that, you have the Maw, which was this like super hard max level zone that like eliminated all your flying and mount abilities. It's just like a bunch of stupid hard stuff with its own currency system. So then you're also farming that area for a shit ton of currency to like level up shit. But again, you can only get a certain number and then you have to come back tomorrow to farm out a bunch. Even though I said, hey, you know, I farm 5 hours and stuff, it just, I don't know. The old ways is you farm for 5 hours for a certain objective. You can kind of like see where you're going with that objective. And with this way, you're farming 5 hours for like 4 different objectives. So you're still like progressing slowly, just through 4 different things.
Right. That makes, I mean, like you said, there's pros and cons and there's...
So that's how Shadowlands started, and that's kind of what turned me off. And then I didn't play anything until the last expansion update, and I logged back in. It's like they made the Covenant system way less grindy. They let you have mounts in the Maw. They unlock the flying, which makes everything so much easier.
A lot of quality of life things.
Yes, and so it became like less of this super work heavy thing to level all these things up and more of a casual thing to level all these things up. And in that sense, I've been enjoying it a lot, and I've been spending way too much time playing Shadowlands and
casual,
not, doing other things. So it's like, who would have thought when you like tell me I have to do a shit ton of work, I don't want to play it, and then when you're like, yeah, you can just do this casually, then I want to play it more than ever.
Yeah,
but
sounds about right.
It looks like with Dragonflight, they're gonna basically give you a dragon right at the beginning to start flying around in. So the covenants are going to be like the black, the bronze, the green, and the red dragons. And each one has its own dragon that you get, and you can customize all the armor on it to customize the look of it so you can start flying. And they even changed the way that you can fly in the game. So there's going to be like different moves and stuff that you can learn with the dragons.
The glider style, man. I'm excited for this. It's fucking Aeon style.
Yeah. Aeon or Guild Wars 2 does it this way too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's how they do flying. But it looks interesting, and it'll definitely be a lot better to have flying unlocked immediately.
All right.
I wonder if the like unique flying and stuff with these new dragons is going to translate to the other mounts, or even the other worlds, or if it's only this one zone and only with these dragons.
Nope, only this one zone, only these dragons. I'm gonna call it right now. It's gonna be super specific to that, and for good reason, because it's probably a million times easier to code. You know how many mounts are out there and how much bullshit's involved, and the more you give players, the more they're gonna break it.
You remember during Wrath of the Lich King how everyone said,
I don't remember yesterday, but I'll keep going.
Everyone was saying like they're never going to bring flying to the old world. It's just not possible. The old world had this old system. And then what happened? They released Cataclysm, where they redid the entire old world to allow flying.
Right. Right, and I mean, so I think that was one of the caveats of that. Is like people were having that discussion. They'd be like, they'd have to, completely rework old worlds to make them flying mount friendly, and that's what they ended up doing. Instead of just being like, hey, they're never going to do it. It's like they can't do it in the current state it's in.
Yeah,
which I think would have been great if they just said, you know what, fuck it, the world is all broken up. Look at all the different ways we had to make this thing work. And you're just flying past all these like big smiley faces with mountains and shit.
Right.
Good old WoW.
So they're bringing back talent trees too, which looks interesting until, you get into it and see how arbitrary they make it all. But still, effort where it is. Their current system of the 7-8 tiers, and you could choose one of 3 abilities in each tier, sucks. It's sucked ever since they put it in. I believe they put it in Warlords of Draenor, and I've hated it ever since.
Right.
They're also finally revamping the professions stuff. Right now they're saying you'll be creating some of the best gear through professions instead of in raids, unless, probably heroic and mythic will have the better stuff, but equated to like LFR and normal, professions will probably have the better stuff. But on top of that, what they're doing is now, if say you're not a blacksmith and you need a piece of plate crafted, you could go to a auction house and set up a work order and be like, hey, here's all the mats I already have. Even bind on pickup mats. You could put this in. It's like, I have all these mats. I'm willing to pay like 200 gold. I need a blacksmith who can make this particular item. And then people who are blacksmiths and are looking to make money, they could go to the auction house and look at these work orders and be like, I could craft that, and they'll craft it real quick. The item sends off to the person and they get money. So you're no longer like spamming general chat or anything. Plus, with the added aspect of you no longer need the blacksmith to have the BOP item to craft the item. You could have the BOP material on your bag and you just set up the work order for it. And then even if the crafted item is BOP, if it's done through the work order, you'll get it.
Right. Like, yeah, it's able to be, I'm sure, through that specifically. And you can't like put it for sale, but you can give it back to the person who put the mats up to the work order. That is really cool. I do like that you could actually just like, it sounds silly because it's almost like a job at that point. Because if you're, a max level blacksmith in the game, you can go pop over to the auction house, look at your work orders. You're like, oh, I got a work order for this. I got the mats.
On one hand, it's like facilitating the RP need of the professions, which was sorely lacking for a long time. But guess what? The hidden fix of this new system.
What?
The crafter can no longer steal your mats.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, how many times in like Burning Crusade Classic you give your mats to someone, they just poured out? Fuck those guys.
No, I remember watching these videos about these private servers where scammers it was TBC, or not TBC, the fucking one right after TBC, the fucking Frozen Throne.
Yeah.
The Wrath of the Lich King, where they were selling like tons of Saronite, like huge amounts of it. And the scammer, they do that thing where they use a script and they pull out all of them but one right before you hit trade. Yeah. And so instead of trading like 19 or whatever, it trade you one.
So, yeah, all of that's quality of life improvements. They're also like they're giving you finally HUD customization, which has been in Final Fantasy XIV for ever.
the creation.
Yeah. So it's like, that's something that's been sorely needed and has been an extra mod in the game since the start of World of Warcraft. But now it's like built into the game after all of these fucking years.
I will say that almost everyone who plays WoW for any amount of time, besides some of those just straight weirdos, because some people just don't at all. But so many people use mods and UI mods and, just completely customize the UI anyway. So I get why they should have put it in a long time ago as a default, just for the people who wanted like a quick resize of this, or they just wanted this bar over here for whatever reason. But I don't get why they didn't do it. I just get why it's not that high of a priority
Right.
after the fact.
Well, I mean, even like one of the other original mods called Atlas Loot, where it's a mod that actually lists out all the item drops from every boss in a dungeon or raid or like vendors, so that you could kind of like plan out what you want, what's coming up and stuff.
They make that stock or whatever?
Yeah, it's now built into the game under the adventure guide.
Yeah, that's fucking smart as fuck.
Like the little book. I can't remember when it was added in, but it's been in there for a long time now. So every new raid, you could like sit there and go through and you can see all the gear that drops from LFR all the way up to Mythic.
Yeah, no, I used to love to look through.
It also helps you with doing like mount farming, so you know which bosses specifically drop a mount.
Right.
You can look at what the new mount is that drops in Mythic.
Right, that's what we were doing with it.
Yeah. Well, so all of these things are big quality of life systems that have been in desperate need. The new hero class looks amazing. Like, not just for the high fantasy thing of being a dragon person.
Right, where you get to turn into, you actually like straight up and down. I mean, again, I know a lot of these reasons why, and I'm not trying to harp on it. I think all these are fantastic ideas. It's just appealing to that like Wolverine demon-esque like young person fantasy, you know. And I love it. I'm fucking totally here for it. Bring that shit on. Dragon person. I'm about it. I'm gonna fucking fly all over the place. Whoa, we heard you like dragons, so we put a dragon on your dragon. Holy shit.
One of the things I'm kind of like, I'm looking at the picture on the WoW website that shows the dragon, and it shows a male and female model, and then it shows their dragon variants. One of the things I'm noticing is like the scales on the dragon also, it almost looks like it mimics the armor they're wearing. Don't know if that's like just the innate dragon design or if their scales are actually going to kind of follow like the linear curves of the armor, you know?
Right. Like that's like they actually made cosmetic parts to the dragon form. Yeah. Where if you're wearing plate, it looks like this. If you're wearing, male, it looks like this. If you're wearing...
The new class is only going to be male, so which it has been sorely needed because as far as classes that wear male,
so that race can only be Dragonmancers.
I haven't seen anything on what are they called? If they're going to be able to do other things, like
what are they called? The
Drakthir Evoker, or Drakthir is the race, but yeah. So far, all the stuff that they've released is like, this is a class that can only be played by this race, and this is a race that can only play this class, is how they put it. And it's like, that is very confusing.
Oh, so I see. It looks like they specifically can only be the evoker, and I kind of get that because it's going to be that same thing where it's like, anyone who has a warrior right now and they're like, no, fuck that, I love dragons, I wanted a dragon warrior the whole time, he's gonna re-roll Drakthir warrior and make that his main. And so then you'll see, and then some people who are just like, fuck it, I want to play an invoker, but I want to level an alt and I want a dragon, so I'm gonna make a...
And now they're doing the Drakthir evoker, which can only be Drakthirs, and the Drakthirs could only be evokers.
Cyclical.
But I mean, it looks cool. They look fun to play. There's a video footage of how they play during the live stream event that they put out. So it looks like they're only going to be damage and healing, and every one of their abilities, the Drakthir are basically the embodiment of all the dragon aspects. So every spec can still have, like, say there's a fireball. Whenever you're casting the fireball, you get the spell effects around your character of all the different colors, but then as they form together, the red becomes more prominent and then it casts a fireball. If you're doing a heal, then you get all the colors, but then whenever they come together, the green is more prominent, you know?
Jesus Christ, that sounds so much cooler than everything else that ever existed in WoW.
Right.
Seriously, it's like, hey, by the way, this is how we make it cooler.
So there's things like, you remember Onyxia's breath where she like glides over everybody and just like breathes down?
You mean deep breath?
Yeah. You get that as an ability.
You get Onyxia's deep breath.
Yes. That's great. You're still like a little humanoid dragon, so it's not as like big and spectacular, but it's cool that they gave it to the class, you know?
A little nod there, yeah.
So I'm sure they're going to keep the gliding mechanics that Demon Hunters have. Not seeing anything about double jumps, so Demon Hunters will still have that over everybody else. But yeah, it looks cool. I'm pretty hyped for it. I was not hyped for Shadowlands, and yeah, playing the beginning of that really bummed me out to where I didn't want to play it anymore. Right. But this looks a lot of fun, and the graphics have never looked better.
Yeah, as sad as it sounds, I find myself really lacking a game that I can play passively, which is basically WoW. I mean, you're never, unless you're PvPing, you're never going to be like frantically jamming on all your keys trying to move your character in just the right way to avoid certain death. It's just like, no, you're just like collecting bits and pieces. I mean, having a really good time doing it. There's so many reward factors and stuff. I just think that I might actually get into the Dragonflight. Sounds like fun. I mean, it sounds like fun as much as any other fucking MMO sounds like fun. It sounds like a fucking huge waste of time, but I mean, to not get so existential or anything, everything's a huge waste of time, so might as well do something. You got to do what you got to do.
I mean, I've played a lot of the different MMOs, and I keep coming back to World of Warcraft just because I like the combat. The combat, even from the beginning, still feels so much more fluid and action-oriented. Things like Final Fantasy, where it's basically like a rhythm dance, where you're just standing in one place and you see a little glowing spot on the floor and you just move out the glowing spot. I don't know. Like,
while you're cycling through abilities all the time, yeah.
Yeah. Final Fantasy has a way, way, way more thought out and cohesive story than World of Warcraft ever put out. But World of Warcraft has the combat, and that's why I like it. Because you could go through the story and then the story will be done and then you're just stuck with the gameplay.
Right.
And I'd rather be playing World of Warcraft.
Oh, absolutely. And nobody's here trying to change anyone's mind and be like, everyone listening, you have to play World of Warcraft. It's like, no, some shit to talk about. This is kind of like bigger in the game depending on what gaming circle you run in. If you're like a hardcore Animal Crossing fan, probably don't care that much about WoW. You're probably also not paying attention to this by now because we harp on Animal Crossing a lot. Oh yeah, you should hear this guy whenever he gets going.
Yeah, it's all in the extended version, by the
way. Right? Hey, if you like Animal Crossing, if you don't like Animal Crossing, get the extended, be a Patreon subscriber, listen to the bullshit we have to say. My favorite part of the extended version from the second one is whenever I muted my headset for like 20 minutes and it was just smoking and drinking.
That's going on a long time about Avengers. Talking about video games that affect the real world, this is a game that doesn't. Tell me about Synthetik, Travis.
No. Games that change not this one, but no. So this is a game called Synthetik, right? And you could find it just by looking up the word synthetic. It's synthetic with a K, with a Y and a K, synthetic game, whatever. If you want to follow along, if you want to look it up, if you want to look at pictures, screenshots, whatever, they released, I say they, it's like two Dutch guys or something. I think they're Dutch or Swedish or something. Wait. So I pulled up their page. The game was created with Game Maker and was developed by an independent studio based in Berlin. So two German dudes, and they made this really cool concept, right? So I'm trying to find a good middle ground to explain this game from the ground up, right? So it's called Synthetik, and now it's called Synthetic Legion Rising because they actually made a free expansion. So you bought the game, they just released more content because they were developing as they went, and they created a very solid game. And they're like, okay, this is all the cool stuff that had to be in the game to make it good, and then they released much more later, like this is all the stuff we wanted to put in after the game was kind of polished up, and they put more polish to it and added like a loose story and a lot of like fixes and little things because the game was popular for a while, and because of a game gets popular, people find ways to break it. Anyways, like so building the game from the ground up, right? This is a top-down shooter, a roguelike. You have one life to live. You pick a class. There's a couple different classes. I think there's like 8 different classes, I think there's like 4 classes and then 2 subclasses in each. Like the purple color is the sniper and the assassin. The green is like a commando. It's like a raider and a butthole or something. I don't know. I have a couple specific classes that I really like to play, and so this is another game that I played co-op a lot with a mutual friend of Chuck and ours, this guy named Dustin. And so we'd play it a lot, and we'd both pick like complementary roles. Or really, he just liked to play something. I like to play something. I'm getting ahead of myself, right? So the main focus of this game is the gunplay. There's so many cool guns in this game, and they're all random. So, like your Borderlands, right? You have a prefix, like a gun company makes one gun, and so even if it's this certain type of gun, it's going to have this particular modifier because it's made by this brand of gun maker that only makes guns that have crazy rapid fire, right? So you've got that same thing where you might have a gun that's a light gun. Well, a light gun lets you move faster and also cools down faster because it's lighter. Because the gunplay in this game is so intense, guns will overheat. So you might have something that's like a flamethrower, right? Well, a flamethrower is going to overheat really fast. Or you might have something that's like a crazy machine gun. Well, it's going to overheat really fast. But then you might have something like a sniper rifle. Sniper rifle is probably never going to overheat because of the rate of fire, right? You're going to be shooting so slow. Or like a crossbow. There's a really cool crossbow in this game. Never going to overheat on you. But because it's a random and it's a roguelike, you might find the best gun in the game on the first level. And so now your run's going to be insanely fun because you're just going to blow shit away and have a great time. Or you might find no good guns for the first 5 levels, and now you're going in super under-equipped, and it's so much of a bigger struggle. But that's what makes the game fun, is that random factor. So on top of like the extraordinary gunplay, right? Like you might find a burst fire MP5 or a futuristic assault rifle that shoots depleted uranium or something, right? Well, every single time you reload in this game, you have to use a special reloading function, right? And so you get a little progress bar by your reticle because you always want to be staring right at the middle of your screen because this is an action-packed fucking game.
They're coming at us from the left. No, I'm looking at the center. Looking at the center.
No, then you move your crosshair to the left, and now it's the center, right? You'll.
I thought this was top down. Why is there a crosshair floating around?
It's more exciting that way. If you didn't have a crosshair, it wouldn't be as exciting. Every good game's got to have a crosshair. In fact, that's why I don't like a lot of Mario games. How many crosshairs do you see in Mario games? Exactly.
2.
So, top-down shooter, right? You eject a clip. So to reload, it's a multi-process function, right? So in most games, in your Counter-Strikes, in your Call of Duty, you just press the reload button. There's a multi-process to reloading in Synthetik, right? And so, like I was talking about, the gunplay is a really important part because that's pretty much the only way you kill anything. There's little subparts, like the commando has a knife that's really fun because you can you do more damage if you dash, right? Dashing is really like a prominent mechanic in the game because you can dodge bullets by doing it or reposition yourself or get to cover and all, everything that you would normally do if you were in a situation where someone's going to shoot you and you could move it, like extremely fast speeds in one direction. Anyways, right? So the reloading part, you have to eject a clip. And so you press spacebar, or if you can use a controller and bind a certain key to it. You press eject, right? And so now your clip's ejected and you have a little mini game by your reticle, right? So you have this little bar, kind of like a golf game. And then you hit spacebar again to reload, to put a new magazine in. Well, you've got another really cool thing about the game is before you actually start it up, you can turn on a lot of these modifiers, and all the modifiers have negative and positive effects. Like you can make yourself do more damage, but you take more damage. You can make yourself move faster, but take more damage to fire. You can turn up the enemy's AI, or you can turn on what I'm talking about, which is like perfect reload. But if you turn on perfect reload, you also do more damage. And so in that gauge, once you reload, you're like a small bracket will move through that gauge, and then depending on the gun, right? So different guns have different reload modifiers and perfect reloads. So sometimes if it's like a really easy gun or something that would be easy to reload, like a big machine gun, your reload bar is going to be much bigger because you're going to have a lot more leeway to reload it But the perfect modifier is going to be, dependent on just what the perfect modifier is. It's all different for every gun. But if you don't at least hit the reload portion of that little mini game, you'll have a bad reload and you'll have to wait a couple of seconds. You'll be penalized for not timing that right. If you hit a perfect reload, then you actually get like more recoil, more damage. It's just
So it's kind of like Gears
oh
of
yeah,
War.
yeah,
reload.
absolutely. It's like that. It's like that a lot, right? And so that part of the game, whenever you're like in a crazy firefight, you might have a gun that's like a big machine gun. You have 100 bullets, right? And so you don't even have to think about reloading through a whole firefight. You're just thinking about movement, dodging bullets, position yourself in the right place. Or you might be using a shotgun. You might be using a single shot shotgun. And so every single time you fire a shot, you're jamming spacebar, looking at that bar for a second, jamming the reload, not even going for perfect reloads, because all you need to do is make sure you jam that shell in there so that you can get that next shot off to kill that guy who's, positioned himself around this corner, and this is the one guy you're worried about. So the game itself makes these artificial difficulty patches depending on what you find. So every class starts with like a starter weapon, right? So like one of my favorite classes, the sniper. Once you level up enough, you start with a bolt action rifle, and that's your normal sniper rifle. You also start with a pistol, right? So you always start with a pistol or a sidearm, and then you level up with the sniper, you get the sniper rifle, and so you're always starting the game with at least this much power. And so I know, based on how many times I played the game, that if I position my character in the right way, this bullet is going to penetrate through enemies. And so if there's 3 or 4 of them, I'm going to move my character, my sniper, in the right spot, and then try to aim for their heads and fire a shot in there to kill all 4 of them. This is a sniper rifle. It's a single shot. You got to play into your own strengths, right? But then there's other classes like it's called like a protector or something, a defender, I think it is. And he has a shield, right? So that shield automatically, because he's got this shield and this single-handed submachine gun. And just that submachine gun, I've realized alone, the single-handed pistol submachine gun is one of the most powerful weapons in the game, upgraded, right? But then you combine that with the fact that now that this dash ability that every class has to reposition themselves or to move around cover, or if you're playing, like I talked about before, the commando who uses commando knife that resets its cooldown when you get a kill. So then you shoot bullets at people, get one guy low, dash at him, slice him, kill him. It resets the cooldown. You dash again, almost like Hanzo in Overwatch. Actually, it's kind of neat whenever you are exposed to so many games that you see different influences in other places.
Yeah, looking at the gameplay trailer, this is very much. If anyone's interested, this game looks a lot like Hades or Enter the Gungeon.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's after Enter the Dungeon, but it precedes Hades. So if Hades is the game you like, you're going to love Synthetik. It's really fun. It's in that same vein. I know that you can turn difficulty up and down in games, but you can definitely make this game so hard that if you're not playing perfectly, or one of my favorite parts about this game is that there's so many ways to find different combinations that break the game, and not even break the game to like overwhelmingly beat it. It's just there's some things that have infinitely stacking like damage, basically anything that's going to infinitely stack. Every time you go to a level, you don't have to clear everything out. If you find, because they're all randomly generated, if you find the exit to a level, you can just go to the exit and sit there for a couple seconds and it'll shoot you to the next level. The only downside to that is as soon as you touch that exit platform, it alerts everything in the level to where you're at, and they all start charging down there. Well, if there's something in your immediate vicinity, it won't teleport you away. So you kind of clear a little bit of the area, kill, maybe 15% of the enemies on the screen or on the stage, go hit that teleport and go to the next one. Well, there's a very specific SMG, this little machine gun. It's called like a Medic V9 or something, right? Well, this thing in particular says every single time you kill an enemy, you get an infinitely stacking health regeneration mod. And that persists even if you don't have the weapon. So if you find it at the beginning of the game and kill every enemy until, I don't know, maybe 1-2 levels before the last level, it's going to be, your health regeneration is going to be so high, as long as something doesn't kill you in one hit, you're basically invulnerable. And then because it's almost the end of the game, there's a big chance that you're going to be finding a lot more loot and a lot more chests and a lot more opportunities to find another gun. You just replace it with whatever looks kind of good, and now you're practically invulnerable, and you just get to kind of breeze through the last part of the game. And even then, the last boss will still present difficulty, depending on how many modifiers you turn on. But that last boss really is a motherfucker. I can't tell you how many times I've been playing this game with a buddy, and we've gotten all the way to that end point, and I'm like, all right, dude, like we've got one little section left, which is really, really hard because it's like enemies are spawning, spikes are on the ground, so you can't stand in certain places, and then toxic gas comes out. So everything's like timed, and so one person goes to one side, one person goes to the other side, like a mini raid mechanic type of thing. It's like, dude, the faster we turn these things off, the faster we get out of here. As soon as we do, jet out of here. And I'm 7 out of 10 times he fucking or one of us dies. I normally, like I said, you get that health regen. It's kind of hard to die. Always dies right there towards the end. So that last fight is still on multiplayer difficulty. And so it's like 2 times harder to kill this thing whenever your boy dies right before the last thing.
It's called giving you that difficulty curve that you wanted.
Oh, absolutely. That's something else.
It's like, this game's too easy for me. Come play with me and die before the final boss so that it's harder for me.
How
I need the adrenaline jabbing in my arm.
How impossibly selfish and right up my alley.
So you enjoy the roguelike way of Synthetik?
I do love roguelikes. Regardless, I really like that randomness. I like so whenever I was really playing this game a lot, I would hop on before I'd go to work, right? I always like to, like I kind of have a little bit of a routine where I'd spend the hour before work. It's like I'd go to work at 4, at 3, jump in the shower, shave, get myself dressed, get all ready to go. Well, sometimes that would take 10 minutes. Because I, shaved yesterday, and I don't really need to like give myself a full-on shave. I've got a full-on beard. There's not a lot to shave. There's a lot to shave. There's too much to shave. That's the issue, is I'm not shaving it, right? So you touch the cheeks, hit the neck. So I'd normally have some time to kill. Sometimes I would do that an hour and a half before work, and so I'd get all ready for work. I'd have an hour to kill. Well, it's really hard to jump in and start playing Rocket League, right? Because I want a couple games to warm up. And then I'm going to get into it so much that it's like, it's going to be hard for me to walk away from this. And I'm going to walk away from it and go to work. But why put that on myself whenever instead, let me play this single player game, Synthetik. And if I've got an hour to kill, cool. I'll go through a couple rounds, pause the game because it's pausable, because it's a single player game, go smoke a cigarette outside, make a sandwich real fast. Now, I've gotten in a really good groove in this game, and I'm having a lot of fun. So I hit escape and I pause the game. I go to work. When I sit back down, I can just tab back to the game. Keep going. Shit. Sometimes,
yeah.
I got to a point where honestly I was like going through rounds so fast that I'd either die because I did something stupid and got impatient, or 2, beat the game. And I got to a point where, going through and beating it wasn't that hard. It's no net hack, which only means that. So the only reason why NetHack is so hard to beat is because you can't sit there and play it on a controller and just press W. You can't press forward and just try. You can't randomly beat it. Whereas if you played Synthetik enough, you'd get randomly enough good things that you'd almost beat it just through attrition. There's a class called an engineer. And an engineer, because I really got in the game and I started just leveling up every class, trying to find the best ways to do it. An engineer gets this ability to put a turret down. And then you can use your in-game currency, like credits or whatever, but it's scrap, right? So you're an engineer and scrap drops from enemies. And so now you can use another ability, another item on your placed gun and overcharge it. Not only do you overcharge it, but you heal it. It's instant and it has no cooldown. So it's only reliant on the resources you have. So the more you play as an engineer and the higher you go and the more scrap you have to heal your thing, you could plop it down in the middle of everything. They're all going to turn to attack it, and they're not even attacking you now. You're invulnerable because nothing's looking at you. And so now you hit it with you let it get hurt a little bit so that the heal part of it has synergy, right? So you're just not buffing it first, you're healing it, then buffing it, and then there might be things that are just hemorrhaging its health. Like it's almost dying every couple of seconds, and you can just press 3 click, and the turret itself will start doing insane damage because I believe that buff also stacks. So the longer it sits out, the more you pump into it, and the more you heal it, the more it just starts shredding shit to death. Well, you can also sit there and just start firing into the crowd of people. So if you really get into it and you really play an engineer and like micromanage what you're doing, the engineer has all these other little nuances like re-rolling items and turning items into scrap and stuff, because you'll find a lot of crappy stuff. It's like you'll find some things that like I don't feel comfortable using. Like there's an item that passively works whenever you shoot, and it's a ripsaw, and it shoots out a little buzzsaw. Well, the buzzsaw bounces off of walls. So if you're in a wrong spot, if you're in a tight little corridor and there's a wall right behind you and you shoot at something directly next to you, this buzzsaw is just going to shoot out and bounce back and forth and hit you 7 or 8 times. And so you're going to really fuck yourself up with your own item, right? So now you have to think about that every time you shoot and never put yourself in a position to get hit by it. But then you might have a M209 grenade launcher, and now something rushed in front of you and you shot at it out of instinct and you just blew a grenade up in front of your face. And so some of that stuff becomes...
I already know. Like, I'll get to a boss or something, just freak out, constantly switching my weapons. I'll hit that buzzsaw and just kill myself with it.
Mm-hmm. That's the biggest issue with the buzzsaw, is that it's passive and it's just an item, so it shoots off of any gun you have, right? It's not a gun itself, although there is a gun that does shoot buzzsaws. I will say that the guns in this game...
So a gun that shoots buzzsaws, getting the passive to shoot more buzzsaws.
Yep. And I've done it, and it's crazy. And you really, it's like unleashing pets, right? You pop around a corner and just shoot out 1 million of them. It doesn't matter where you're aiming, and then you duck behind the corner, and then there's just chaos everywhere.
Soldier, why is this one man shredding through us? This armor? It stops bullets. This guy is shooting buzzsaws.
I love that mental image so much of just like a really pissed off. It's like I'm sure someone's made a comic about it, and if not, we really need to get on top of that. But just like a really mad construction worker that just like had enough. He's just like an anime badass that can just do 360s and blast buzzsaws off, whip hammers at cops and shit.
How much of a story is in this?
Okay, so it's a super loose story. It's something about like some like Japan and Germany or something made like a supercomputer, and you're a cyborg that is in the supercomputer, and all the stuff you fight are robots that are in the tower, and you're trying to get to the top of it to kill the brain and stop the supercomputer because it's gonna like take over the world or something. A very generic plot, but if there was no plot at all, this would still be like a 9 out of 10,
right?
8 out of 10
So
game.
Enough story to constitute as like a retro Nintendo game.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly. Are you a bad
enough dude? Why the hell you asking so many questions? Bad guy there. Your gun. Go.
See, that would be the best intro if it was just like the cyborg main character, and he was like, "What the fuck is right? Why? Hey, what's with all the questions?" And then you just play the game.
Why are you talking when there should be shooting?
Exactly. But so really loose base story. There's a lot of really cool things about it, like because there's so many items and so many guns, you actually have this system where if you go into the inventory part of the game, right? And so it shows you just all the list of all the random stuff in the game after you've found them. I believe it's like question marks until you do. So mine's just like full of everything, right? Because I played the game like hundreds of hours, and I might be wrong because maybe you can just choose and it just has everything unlocked. I didn't. The upgrade for that free expansion changed a couple things that I'm not that familiar with. Anyways, right? So if you have like a favorite gun and every time you find it, you're like, holy shit, this makes my run so much more fun. You can put these modifiers on things in your inventory or like in the game's inventory, right? So you have so many badges and you have like 3 like thumbs up and you have 3 thumbs down. And so you're like, oh, I fucking hate when I find this crossbow. It pisses me off so much. It ruins my runs. I hate seeing it. So you put a little thumbs down on it. Now you have that, like, I don't know what the background the background number is, but like, you know, whatever, like a 10% less chance to find it. And then you're like, oh man, this nail gun launcher, because there actually is a nail gun in the game. It's really good, actually. It's really good, right? Because it regenerates the ammo in its magazine. So, and because it kind of shoots slow, if you're a good shot and you go doot 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 and like, you know, hit some dude 3 times in the head and he dies, and you wait a couple seconds, those 3 nails will regenerate themselves back into the clip. they'll still be used from the maximum amount of ammo, but then you can also find other guns like that just regenerate their ammo. And then there's so many different types. Like there's plasma guns, right, that have this really weird mechanic where if you reload them, they drain your shields, or they do a lot of damage to you based on how strong the gun is, because you're opening up like this toxic canister and reloading plasma in it. But if you don't reload it and you wait, it will naturally reload its own bullets, and that's how you're supposed to reload it. But in an emergency, you can pop it out and pop a new one in and hurt yourself.
Then you give these things like 3 thumbs up, and it gives you a higher percentage for them to drop on your next run.
Right, and so yeah, that's the thumbs up mechanic. Is so it'd be 3 separate things, right? So you wouldn't like be able to put more than 1 thumbs up. But yeah, so you're like, oh, I really like this plasma rifle, thumbs up. I really like this sniper rifle, thumbs up. Well, there's also what's that? Lurin Gragas. It's some I can't remember. Lurin
Gurren Lagann, the anime?
The anime, yes, thank you.
Okay.
So it took me way too long to get there. I probably could have just said, like, hey, that anime with the kids in the under.
Yeah.
That's actually way more difficult to get to. Anyways, right? So, the sniper rifle the chick uses, right? They're like, oh, it's the best gun in the village, and she's the best shot, so she gets to use it. That gun's in the game. I think that alone is just like such a neat
fucking weebs.
Yeah, fucking weebs, right? It's just it's so cool too, because I've picked that gun up so many times and modded the right way. It can't be fired unless you're not moving, and it's single shot bolt. Like you have to eject the clip and put a new one in, but it also has like the most damage in the game. Not to the point where it just like is broken, and if you get it, it's like a gag weapon because it's so good. It's just modified the right way. It's so fucking good. Every time I get that gun, and I've picked it up in multiplayer so many times where I've been playing like the Guardian with the shield, and I've always been like the super tanky one, and I'll be playing with like Dustin, who's playing like a commando or something. I'm like, all right, dude, I got the sniper rifle. It's like, good luck. Scramble around, whatever, because I'm going to stand in the back, not move, and blast the shit out with the fucking sniper rifle, and it's so rewarding. Even now, just thinking about it, I can hear that super satisfying, like, sonic boom of that cartridge. And then that like the guns alone. If you like guns, if you like first person shooter games, I mean, it's top down, but still it's really rewarding in that way. Where I can hear in my head that hollow like dink that is a headshot versus a body shot, because there's so many times you're gonna find a single shot gun or something like a crossbow or a pistol or something where it's like I'm gonna aim for the head. Anyways, I've definitely talked about this for a while. Unless you have any like specific questions about anything that I missed, because all of my reviews are very chaotic and quite random and just kind of go off to whatever.
You pick these like indie games that you don't really have to explain a whole lot in them, and it's really more about like explaining your experience with them.
And I mean, really, that's why I enjoy them so much. Like I'm gonna have to do a Dwarf Fortress one week, and that'll just be that'll be a fucking mess. What a mess. Right. But no, I definitely, like I said, it's an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. This is such a solid game, and it's such a good thing to have in your library, even as offline. Yeah. Something you could always just spend 20 minutes on playing.
Get it for your Steam Deck.
Yeah, get it for your Steam Deck.
Talking about roguelike shooter games, my game is none of those. My game is Batman Arkham Origins. So, back in the PlayStation 3 days, Rocksteady came out with a brand new Batman-style game called Batman Arkham Asylum. It changed the game of Batman video games. Had an amazing combat system that was very fluid. It had an amazing story that was also like very dark and borderline mature rated. You also like there's a bunch of like detective parts to it. It felt so much more like Batman than any of the shows, the movies, or any previous games have done. And it was very widely popular. To follow that up, they came out with the sequel of Arkham City, which made it very much open world and had a much bigger storyline, bunch more characters from the Rogues Gallery of Batman. It was amazing. So then Rocksteady started working on their third game, which ended up being Arkham Knight, which came out on the next console generation. Well, in the meantime, Warner Bros. Wanted more Batman games because now they know that people are hooked on them and will throw down money. They hired out their Montreal studio to basically create a prequel story called Batman Arkham Origins. It's set like about a year into Batman. So he like has just barely set up the suit. The criminals in the city are afraid of him and stuff. But most of his rogues gallery are just getting established within this game.
I didn't realize. I feel silly because I didn't realize there was 3. I thought it was Arkham Asylum, Arkham City. So I'm really excited about this.
Arkham Knight, which was, so that's the Rocksteady trilogy, but Arkham Origins is kind of like the cousin to these guys. It's like created by a different developer, but it's still within the same continuity.
Were you about to say bastard?
Yeah, I was about to say something. Part of it is this studio was given the opportunity to create an origin story for the Arkham universe. Also, Warner Bros. Wanted multiplayer attached to it. So it's the first Batman game with a multiplayer, which was very, very weird. It played weird. It had
Wait, multiplayer?
Yeah, it had a nice thought behind it where it's basically a 3-faction system. There's 2 gang member teams. So it's like the Penguins men versus the Joker's men kind of thing. So you get this kind of like third-person shooter part to it. But then one person, I think it was 2 people, a team of 2. So they could play as Batman and Robin. And they go through and they have to use Batman's gadgets to subdue everyone on the team. So it was very, very weird and didn't work properly. And the servers are no longer available. But yeah.
That sounds fun, but insane.
It's nice to look at some of these projects and see some kind of ingenuity brought into it. Kind of like Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, how they did that multiplayer.
That's the very first thing I thought of when you said that.
So it's like, it's interesting that they thought of these concepts and thought of how can we get the single player version into the multiplayer. But it didn't work. It did not work right. It was very laggy, very messy. Like there was things were not balanced properly. Unfortunately, there's a lot of trophies attached to it. So no, I do not do a complete run of that. This is one of those games where I don't know if you've had them before, but pretty much as soon as it was announced that it was a different studio and not the Rocksteady version, it just kind of like, it set off like red flags in me. Like, this is just a cash grab. It's going to be shit. It's going to be shit, you know? The game gets released. I play through it. And all I can think about is all the reasons why it's a terrible game compared to what Rocksteady does, you know? So I beat the game, you know, I beat the story, and I basically throw it on my shelf, forget about it. And this game came out in 2013, and it took me almost 10 years to pick it back up.
Wow.
And it's like the entire 10 years, all I could think of was how horrible this game was. At the time, I was trying to start a Twitch stream. So it's like, I'll play through all of the Batman Arkham games, you know? I started playing Batman Arkham Origins again. And this time around, I didn't have those thoughts anymore. Those thoughts were like completely out of my mind by this point. And so I'm going through and it's like, you know, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in this game. Like the main story is set during Christmas time in Gotham. It's a very large city version. Previously, Rocksteady did Batman Arkham City, and this is still like 2, almost 3 times larger than that. And it still has a lot of it evokes a lot of the architecture and design from like the cartoon series and stuff. So it's like, it actually was very interesting to go through this. It's interesting seeing like a lot of the prototype gadgets as Batman builds them, and then it's like, oh, hey, that's going to be used later on for this other gadget kind of thing when it's more streamlined.
Right, you see the bones of some of the gadgets.
Yeah. When you're doing combat, there's like, you know, there's Batman knows a lot of combat styles and stuff. In the previous games, it was like he was very forceful, but he is always very like direct and smooth, and you could kind of like get that by how the fighting worked. And in Arkham Origins, they actually thought of that and made it to where, you know, this is his first year on the job. He is very brutal. He does not hold back his punches, you know. He's just like laying into these guys. Another thing on my replay through of Origins is, they once again like kind of do an Origins of the Joker thing. And once you kind of get beyond the, oh God, we're doing Joker as the main villain again kind of feeling, it's actually a really interesting story. And there's even parts of the game where you're playing as Joker, kind of like going into his own psyche of his head and stuff, which was very, very interesting. So the plot is that Batman has been, you know, rattling a bunch of cages in the mob scene for the last year. So all of the gangsters in town basically pull their money and put out a bounty on Batman. It's like, kill the Bat before Christmas, get $2.5 million or whatever.
When was this game made?
2013.
I was going to say, $2.5 million for Batman doesn't seem like a lot.
I just kind of threw out a number, okay? That's not the exact number. $50 million, that's the number.
Oh,
okay?
Shit, I'm killing Batman tomorrow. Yeah, dude, find me a gun. I'll go find someone, make him call himself Batman, turn him into this video game for $50 million.
So that brings out a lot of the rogues gallery. You got like Killer Croc, Deathstroke, Firefly, Copperhead, Deadshot, Electrocutioner, Lady Shiva,
Professor
and
Dragon.
And the Penguin is also there.
He doesn't do anything though.
Well, he's one of the people who like is putting up the money on the bounty.
Oh, okay. So he's already there. He's not gonna yet. He's just got to chill out now. He already did. His job was money. His superpower is money and looking horrible.
Joker's there, but he's not part of the assassin squad. He just kind of like was already doing his own like shit, and then in the middle of all this, and the Joker's like, oh wait, people want to kill him? Well, I want to kill him first. You know.
So he's like, I gotta kill him before they kill him, or they'll kill him. Hey, it was Joker logic, man.
Right. So yeah, I mean that's the basic plot. Is as Batman, you have to solve all these murders that Joker is doing to kind of stop him, and in the meantime, you're trying to basically fight off all of these assassins, and the assassins will do crazy things to lure him out. Like Firefly will use his flamethrower to basically cause havoc on one of the bridges between the Gotham Islands. So he's just like torching cars, blowing shit up and stuff. So you have to stop him before he does even more damage.
Have you ever thought about that, man? If you had superpowers, not even superpowers, just like a crazy powerful suit, and you knew the cops weren't just gonna like shoot you in the head, right? And you just had flamethrowers on your hand, would you just, I mean, I don't want to like hurt anybody necessarily, but I'd definitely burn a bunch of shit down.
I wouldn't, mostly because, you know, it's a jetpack and I can fly around. What do I care about the peasants who walk on the land about, you know?
Oh, no.
I'm in the air.
Kidding. You're right, though.
Sky crime, bitch.
Yeah, you can just fly around. Fuck it.
It's like, oh, what are you going to do? Arrest me? You ain't got no jetpacks. Get out of here.
No legislation in the air. You can't,
zoom.
You can't read your Miranda rights in between trampoline jumps fast enough, idiot. Looks like I'm never going to jail.
Sky crime.
That's good sky crime.
It's supposed to be like the long Halloween kind of storyline for Batman, but set during Christmas. It's really great.
A long Christmas.
Yeah. You also get the Riddler, because one of the extra activities within these Arkham games is that the Riddler will like set up all trophies everywhere, and they're like hidden behind like these little puzzle games and stuff. And you know, it's usually like the first game had like 125 trophies, the second game had 250.
This one has 500.
It's a ridiculous amount. 500. It is fucking ridiculous.
So do you get anything, or is it like, do you get upgrades, do you get bonuses, or is it just plot development?
Each one you get will give you a bit of XP, and stuff. It works towards a completion bonus. The XP, as you level up, you can like unlock extra combos or extra stuff with the gadgets, extra health and body armor, stuff like that. When you collect all of them, you unlock the story point to actually go to Riddler in his lair and like beat him in a boss battle or solve a puzzle that he leaves there. And it's just kind of like an extra story point and some more Easter eggs that they could cram into a room. So,
did you do it?
Well, of course I did it. Of course I did. One of the things, the first time I played it was on the PS3. I got every trophy except one. And it was in this one building. And I watched the YouTube videos, and on the main map, you can see clearly where it's at and everything. For whatever reason, my PS3 version was bugged out and that trophy never loaded in. So I couldn't get it. So I couldn't finish that part of the story. And that was another thing that just kind of like made me hate the game more.
Wow.
This time around, I played it on Steam. I was able to get all the trophies and finish the quest. The other kind of drawback was even though this Montreal studio got a bunch of the assets from Rocksteady, they weren't as good at fine-tuning like the combat system. You can see Rocksteady's influence where it's like very precise. As you're punching, if you move the stick even slightly to the right, it properly targets the next enemy over so that you can like keep the combo going that way. Or the dodges, you know, you could time the dodges at the very last second before the fist hits Batman, and it'll be like the perfect dodge kind of thing. In like Arkham City, when you're like surrounded by like 10 to 15 enemies, you could kind of get into a groove of like punching them and knocking them down and using gadgets and stuff. And it's like, as long as you're getting it just in time, you know, you could keep it going, keep the flow going and stuff.
Keep beating ass.
Batman Arkham Origins, they really needed to fine tune it because it was very imprecise, you know. You'll be sitting there like just doing the basic punch combo on an enemy, and for whatever reason, it'll just randomly try to trigger a guy to Batman's left, and he'll turn and miss a punch, and that drops your combo, you know.
Oof.
There'll be like, for some reason, there's like this 0.3 second window where your button presses will not respond. So if an enemy's like running up behind you and like hitting you, even if you hit the like dodge or, you know, try to punch him first kind of thing, if it's within this one window, it just won't register your hit. It automatically registers his hit before yours.
No.
Just like all these little things. And at the same time, they were trying to like do the like, we could put in more enemies than Rocksteady did with Arkham City. So instead of 15 enemies, you could fight up to 30 enemies. And it just became this whole system of frustration watching my combos dropped over and over due to the game's programming messing up, and it's not my button presses, you know?
Right. And then even more enemies to just piss you off.
Yeah.
It's like, what you needed to do is tighten up your combat and have less enemies if you needed to. Fuck.
Yeah. And then on top of that, the first two Arkham games, there's these things, there's a system called quick draw gadgets. So when you're in the middle of a fight, you know, you're punching a guy, you notice a guy like at the other side of the room, basically charging towards you. If you tap like R1, yeah, I believe it was R1. Batman will pull out his Batarang and just launch it at the guy that's charging him. You know, just like real quick, stun him, and it counts towards your combo, and you can like keep it going. And so as you get more gadgets, they all have like a quick draw function to continue your combo going.
And that's awesome. That's tight as fuck.
Yes,
just to be
that is awesome. Yeah. But going from Arkham Asylum to Arkham City, Rocksteady kept those specific quick draw buttons the same. Arkham Origins, they flipped them. So instead of, you know, R1 throwing the Batarang, it's now R2. And so if, you know, you're a fan of the at this time, if you're a fan of the first two games and you've played them to death, your brain is already registered. You have the muscle memory for these certain combos. You throw on Arkham Origins, you're fucking up all day because you're hitting the wrong ones. So
what does R1 make you do in a fight?
It changed it to let's see, like R2 was like throwing the batarang, and R1 was like one of the other gadgets you get is like the electrocutioner gloves, and it basically like sets them up to charge as you're punching enemies, kind of thing.
So it wasn't the worst to hit it as you're doing
it. It is when the whole purpose of you throwing the batarang is to like knock down a guy who's charging at you.
Right.
That would be the only way to stop him from charging. He'll like go through any other, like you couldn't like throw a punch at him because it would register his charge overpowers your punch.
Yeah.
So that's why you throw the batarang to knock him down.
Right.
So yeah, they're
just curious because if like R1 was the surrender button and Batman just puts his hands up, he's like, all right, give up. And so you're like in the middle of this big combo and you hit R1 instead, he's like, fuck, I'm Bruce Wayne, you got me.
Those are really, after playing through that second time, those are really my biggest gripes about it. Well, okay, there's a third gripe, and it's not big, but it's kind of big.
The griping.
All of the games, as you progress through the game, of course, the enemies you start facing stronger enemies, and then you beat them and stuff. And so it gets to a point where all of the enemies start having guns. And every game has had this, but Origins is the only one that overstacks the enemies with sniper rifles.
Mm-hmm.
There is one building in particular that's like, it's in the middle of the city. And if you're playing the late game of it, there's like 6 sniper rifles on that building. And yeah, you'll be like lighting through the city and stuff, and they're just constantly just pelting you and stuff. And it becomes so frustrating because it's like, all I want to do is like, feel like Batman. I just want to like light around and stuff. I have all these upgrades unlocked and stuff. I just want to like fly from one end of the city to the other. You hit this one point, it's basically a dead zone for you, and it's just so frustrating.
I like the idea of these snipers sitting on top of this building, and they're like, I bet fucking Batman's gonna fly by any second. They're just like drunk rednecks sitting on the roof shooting at Batman as he passes by. Yeah.
Asylum and City, they had that too, but it would only ever be like 2 or 3 snipers at a time. Like, this was just way overkill.
Do you think it was the studio specifically just trying to outdo the other games?
I mean, I don't think...
Was it personal?
If I was a betting man, I don't think this was one of those like, well, we want to double down on how many enemies there was before. I think it was more of they did it in the other games where when you reach this point of the game, enemies start having sniper rifles, and we just have we have a bigger city than they do, so we just need sniper rifles on these high points, and they just ended up overwhelming this certain section of the city.
Right.
Without intention.
Well, I wonder how that went through with playtesting, and if they were just like, hey, get better, pussy. Like,
it's Warner Bros. You really think they playtest?
Like, hey, this is a complete project. It looks good on paper.
I don't know the full details of how playtesting works. You hear stories of the playtesters would get like a kind of a demo window of what the game is. Other playtesters will only they'll be able to play like the beginning part and then a little bit of the middle and then maybe 10 minutes of the end, Right. It's not so much as if you sign up to be a playtester, you get to play the game from beginning to end before everybody else does. No, you get like these little snippets, and it's like play around in the city and try to find what breaks,
Right, where they have mechanics available to the game. They're like, hey, this is the big open world part, or hey, this is the dungeon that has all the glitches in it. Like, try to find one.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. It's not just like, hey, this is the game experience. We're going to give you this game for free, and you're going to get paid to play it. Have fun. I hope you find some bugs. Haha.
Yeah. What makes these games great is always the story. It's still the same writing team writing it that wrote the first couple games, but all the voices are changed out, so it's not it's not Kevin Conroy as Batman. It's not Mark Hamill as the Joker. You know, it's younger people to voice these people.
Right. The non-classics. So in every Batman review, you have to say the words, "It makes you feel like Batman. It makes you feel like you're really Batman."
But I already said that.
Really?
I said that at the beginning.
Okay, yeah. Good. So,
you high motherfucker?
Yeah, there was a donkey review about people reviewing Arkham Asylum, and you know, like every IGN, every Game Grumps, every single review said it makes you feel like you're Batman. It's like, that's the point of a video game. Thank you very much. It should make you feel like it makes you feel like you're controlling your Batman toy from whenever you were a child, and it's set in the no, man, it makes you feel like you're Batman.
So the main story, it's good. It's sufficeable, you know. You get a little bit more background for like Joker, which is pretty great. You get to see a lot of villains that you previously haven't seen in a lot of multimedia, like Firefly was.
Yeah.
Who knows Firefly kind of thing?
Well, you got Firefly, Cannibal Man, Triangle Head. What was that other one? Particle Lad.
Okay, so only one of those is an actual Batman villain.
Wait, one of those is a Batman villain? What? What did I say? Oh, God.
So, but what was great, and what was the thing I missed the first time playing through it, because I played the base game, and then I was like, fuck that game, it's not as good as Rocksteady, you know? I never played the DLC the first time through.
Oh.
This time I did.
Gotcha. That's a good reason to go back to it.
One stands out so much, and is as good as the Batman animated series story, and that is Mr. Freeze.
Really?
Yes.
I love Mr. Freeze.
Batman Arkham City, which had one of the best boss battles with Mr. Freeze, where you have to stop him, and you know, you're like sneaking up behind him and doing like a takedown. Well, after you like hit him once, you know, it knocks like a chunk of his health down. Well, he turns on like afterburners on his suit so that you can't sneak up on him again. So then you have to do like a ledge takedown. Well, once you do that, then he like freezes the railings in that room. So now you can't do a ledge takedown. So it actually forced you to kind of think of different ways to like attack him, and you couldn't go after him from the front because then he'd just hit you with his freeze ray.
Right, and then
it was one of the best boss battles like made in these games. So it was very interesting playing Arkham Origins and playing the Mr. Freeze DLC, and actually like progressing through the storyline of finding out like how he was created, and you know, learning how he developed his suit, and having Batman actually like build his own kind of like frozen wasteland type suit to combat him, you know.
Right.
It's really fun. I know this isn't as long of a rant as I've usually gone on, but I wanted to bring this up because the first two games I talked about, you know, I had some like very glaring issues with those games and like really set me off. But this was a game that like set me off when it originally released for arbitrary reasons, and then going back through and playing it is like, you know, this game is actually like really well done. It has a couple problems, but it's actually pretty fun. You know, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I really wanted to talk about this because going back through changed my mind. So if there's a game that you had a certain viewpoint on the first time you played, and you played it a couple years later, give us a shout out. Let us know on Twitter at toomanygames2. That's TOO mini games number 2. Also, check out our Patreon, where subscribers get extended versions of our podcasts. This one in particular, I have recorded almost 4 hours worth, so it's definitely going to be a lot.
I was just about to say, man, this one's a real motherfucker. I have not ended one podcast yet, laying on the floor, yawning, with pillows behind me, just like, God, I hope I die soon. Like, God, like, did death come to me, strike me down. No, it's been phenomenal.
send us email, like question, concerns, call us stupid shitheads, whatever, at toomanygamespodcast@gmail.com. Thank you guys for listening. We're available on wherever podcasts are available. Give us a like, a review, comment at all of the socials that we've mentioned 20 times before.
Just in case.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Take it easy.